Hey friends, welcome to Facebook Thursday. It's your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler, and hey, glad you're here. We have some really fun stuff to do today. There is a lot going on here on the farm. If you have never joined us before, I am a little small flower farm in the middle of the city in southeastern Virginia. My whole property is less than 3 acres. We have never grown more than 1.5 acres in production. During our high season years, right, our high production years, when we were like pumping 10 to 15,000 stems of flowers a week outdoors, no hoop houses, no greenhouses. So if I'm talking about doing stuff, most people can apply it to where they grow. Not meaning the timing, but the methods that I use. So today, I'm kind of sharing my experiment that I've done for the last 2 years, and hopefully it's going to help you out. So just a couple little housekeeping things. If you want to learn more about what we're doing here at the Gardener's Workshop, we're basically a virtual learning center. We have an online garden shop. We sell all the same seeds, tools, and supplies that you see me use here on my videos. And we're probably most well known after being a flower farmer as being soil blockers. That's the English and the Dutch way of starting seeds, which have totally changed my world. You can see I've got some growing back there under a little grow light. Under that little 12-inch by 24-inch space, you can support 240 seedlings until they go to the garden. Is that not totally awesome? That is thanks to soil blocking. So you can find more about us over at thegardenersworkshop.com. And as always, I love it when I see you guys posting the sunflower emoji, because that identifies you as one of our online course students. Whether it's an on-demand course or one of our big schools, we just love it when people reach out and show us their stuff by showing that sunflower. So that is totally and completely awesome. And you know what I was thinking about this morning? First off, where'd the winter go, right? It's like March. I mean, the seed calendar is going to be wide open in just a couple of weeks. But you know what else I was thinking about is everybody is talking about tulips and all these things that they're harvesting. Dave Dowling's course, which is bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more, enrolls in June, and then it runs in July and August. And people say, in the middle of the season, are you kidding me? Well, folks, that's when you're planning and ordering all your bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more, right? So just put that on your radar, and you can go to Dave's course page and sign up to get on his wait list, which just means you'll get a lot of great resource information, but we won't let you miss the registration because it is scaling people's businesses like crazy. I mean, Dave is a walking encyclopedia if you're not familiar with Dave Dowling. And then here's a freebie to go get a taste of his teaching. He did an amazing podcast with Jenny Love. The name of the podcast is the No-Till Flowers podcast, and it's the tulip. Just search the podcast that she's done, and it is, he teaches you how to stretch your tulip harvest out. And what you hear in there is just a taste of what Dave Dowling has for you. So I was just thinking about that this morning, and thought this would be a really good time to mention that, because I don't know about y'all. Are you overwhelmed? Oh my gosh. I don't even want to go to my email box anymore, because it's like every time I look at another email, it's something else I need to fix, think about, decide on. Anyway, so here on the farm, what's happening, right? So my last frost date is April 15th or so. And so we are literally in the midst of planting the last of our very early spring cool flowers. And then these that are behind me, this is part of an experiment, which we're not going to talk about now because we're going to wait till the experiment's ready to talk about. And so the girls are out planting stock, godicia, and straw flowers, and Lysianthus. They'll be planting Lysianthus after lunch. And so things are happening here. So we're going to be doing 2 things here today. I am going to be planting more cuttings of salvia leucanthia and salvia mexicana, and I'm going to do that first. But then after that, y'all, I'm sharing my sunflower secret with you guys and showing you what I'm doing. And I'm going to tell you what you need to base yours on, which you need to think about whether you can or when you should actually do this too. But let's do salvia first. So, I've been doing salvia. This will be the third time. And I'll show you, first off, let me get this. This is the cup of water that I dipped the cuttings in. Let me get a little bit. This is rooting power. You'll find this on our website. This will last you for years, And so what I do is it's literally, whoop, that didn't go very good, did it? I just spilt as much. Actually, maybe I'm going to use what I just spilled on my table here. All right. Well, we're off to a great start today, right? Okay. So I've already cut my cuttings, and I'll show you those. Let me just move them out of the way so I can I want to show you guys the tray. So this is what we've done the last couple of weeks. So on this side over here, this is the salvia mexicana. That has the larger leaf. And this is the salvia mexicana. No. Salvia leucanthia is on this edge. See, it's got like the long skinny leaf. And I'm going to actually bring you guys down so you can watch and see what I'm doing here. So I'm watching something fly around in here, y'all, and it's not a bird. It's probably a wasp, right? All right. Still don't have a cameraman. Not that I want one. All right, so here we go. So these are the ones that we've started in the past. And so I have a few more holes over here to fill in. And let's do that first. So these plants that I cut this from are we call them our mother plants. They we pull the big containers into the building for the winter so they don't get winter snapped. And then they just start shooting. I mean, literally, we have done nothing to these containers. They just start growing, and I just cut off stems just like you're doing, cutting a flower. And this is what you're looking for, about a 2 to 3 inch stem. And literally, you really only want one piece of foliage on there. I just didn't have time to pinch them off yet, so I'm going to do it as I do these. So the way you do this is you just have a cup of water, and I'm literally just going to dip that in to get it wet. And now you can't see this, but I'm just rolling it into the rooting powder that I have. Y'all, I need a pen. Wait a minute. Or we'll use a pencil. Because what needs to happen is I need to put holes in each one of these little cells because you don't want to scrape the hormone off of, see, I'm just dipped it in and got it a little bit. And so I'm just going to stick that down in the hole and then just give it a smush. And I'm just going to keep on doing that. So I'm just pinching anything that's beyond one leaf because you really just don't need more vegetation. And these guys, I mean, there's a couple in here, as I've mentioned before. Sometimes if they're too immature like this one is rotting. It's a really puny one. So we were kind of desperate that week. So I cut some that were maybe a little bit smaller than what I would normally do. So I find that the more mature the stem is, the better they root. And so literally this tray is just going to go and sit in my grow room. It sits on the floor underneath some grow lights. And in fact, if I had a warm place to put it, I'm touching this soil, when I'm pushing the stems in, and this soil is really cold. And if it was actually warm, they'd probably root faster. But I really don't have a warm place to put them. And that's why we put some of our cool flower experiments on the floor in that room, because the concrete is really cold. And we did some testing with plug trays in there, and it seemed to work really, really well. All right, so see, it's just about a 2 or 3 inch piece, a stem. I'm going to roll it in some of that hormone. And so I water these. Can you believe it, y'all? I have exactly the right number of stems. I did not count that before. That does not normally happen. So I put these on the floor in the grow room. So I'm pinching 2 pieces off of that. Under a grow light so that they get some light. And there's the last one of those. And you just need to smush it so that the soil is making contact. And let's do the salvia leucanthia, and then we're going to be done with this tray. Like, see how this one's kind of wilty? Well, that's because I left 2 leaves on there. What was I thinking? So you just, extra vegetation just puts added stress on it, right? And why do that? Just why even do that? All right, so let's just quickly do this so we can get to our sunflowers, right? So I need to put holes. What do I do with my pencil? Y'all, this is that time of year. I know that everybody is feeling really overwhelmed, but I want to remind everybody that this overwhelm is getting what we've all worked and trained for, right? That's what I told my students the other day. It's like, stand by for more overwhelm because we're getting what we worked for. You know, all of everything that you think needs to be done. You wouldn't be doing that if, you know, you hadn't worked so hard to get all this stuff planted, stuff ordered, stuff showing up on your doorstep. I actually just love the next week or 2 because we really don't start with our warm season tender annual seed starting yet. We're right on the brink of it, but it's not time yet. And I tend to, and people can take this with a grain of salt and think about it for you, I tend to start a little later in place of a little early because there is just nothing worse than having beautiful seedlings and it's still too cold outside or whatever. And I'd rather me be waiting for the seedlings to get ready and have the space ready and the environment, the weather's right. So we will not be getting, let's see, what is today? I should know this. My anniversary is tomorrow. Y'all, I'm the worst about that kind of stuff. My husband is the one that remembers everything, not me. Anyway, so tomorrow's the 4th. I do know that. So typically we starting warm season stuff about mid-month, mid-March. I mean, I'm going to do what we're going to do today for the sunflowers, but we're not going to be getting revved up on a lot of celosias and, of course, not zinnias because, zinnias they are in soil blocks anyway. They're ready to go to the garden in, 14 to 21 days. So you really don't want to start them early because they're Mediterranean, y'all. They do not want to be outside in the cold. So resist doing that. There's lots of other things that need to be done. You just got to figure out what they are. So I don't have enough of these cuttings, but we're just going with it, y'all. We only have one more after this. Then we're going to talk sunflowers. All right, so this is the last one. So this is the salvia mexicana. And so where I got the initial plants for this is I literally, y'all, just purchased them online from a plant, online plant business. And it was High Country Gardens. I just bought 3 plants, and those 3 plants have made thousands of plants for us. I mean, literally thousands. So High Country Gardens, buy 3 of each. Get them, plant them in really large. When I say large containers, I mean they're like half whiskey barrel size stuff. And they live in those containers all summer, and then we cut them back in the winter, fall, and bring them in to make sure that they don't get winter killed, and then they start to regrow, and here we go. This is the 3rd year on those 3 plants. So that works really, really well. So there you go. Actually, let me get rid of this. All right, so let's talk about, first off, one of the things that, sorry y'all, this table is just a smidgen too wide. I can barely reach to that side. All right, so one of the things that we suffer from here where I am, because y'all have to remember, I have 0 hoop or greenhouses, which just means that there are some things that are just way too much work to be grown out in the field. You can grow them, but they're more work than I would ever do to get those blooms. So some of those things that are really early spring or spring bloomers, tulips and ranunculus, I don't grow them. I haven't ever grown them. I mean, I test grew them years and years ago, but we don't grow them. And so I have found other ways to fill in that niche, right? I mean, perhaps my secret to farming success is, making the most out of the easiest for me to grow, the most profitable, that can be grown seasonally outside in a garden, and making the most of it. So with that said, of course, cool flowers plays a huge role in that, right? So our fall planted cool flowers are big time players. I mean, April and May, they were really pretty much all we had blooming. And then in June, oh my goodness, when the warm season stuff starts blooming and the cool flowers are still going, June is like craziness around here. So one of the things that's really been missing for us in mostly in May is we really wanted to start up our bouquet making operation, whether it be for farmers markets or our members only on farm market or for supermarkets. We had all these cool flowers, but we didn't have any focal flowers. That was really a big problem. And before I travel on to sunflowers, I do want to share some really great results. 2 new cool flowers to us that we grew this fall, planted this fall as transplants that wintered over beautifully, that I'm really excited about. One of them being the same, a potential focal flower, is the carnation Shabad, I believe it is, Shaubud, I think it is. Anyway, you'll find it on our website. You can find the seed. It's that round zinnia shaped flower. I cannot even tell you how those transplants and the transplants of the annual baby's breath Covent, both of which you can find on our website under the new seed category, I believe, or you can find it under the cool season seeds. Both of those, we were so pleasantly surprised. We had some unusual losses this winter, definitely chalking it up to wet feet. But these 2, which were a first time for me to grow them from years ago, did really, really great. So those are 2 that you need to put in your pipe. You need to write them on your calendar if you are fall planting cool flowers, that those are great potentials. So what we really started working on is how in the world can we have more focal flowers earlier in the year. And because of my experience with sunflowers, and I knew that they are certainly not cool season hardy annuals, y'all, but they are much more cold tolerant than some of the other warm season tender annuals. So that led me the last 2 years to really push the envelope of when do we plant the first transplants of sunflowers out in the field. So if you have not been a part of my weekly sunflower succession, I mean, if that's something that's new to you, there are tons of videos here on Facebook. You can go to my videos and go back and look. I did it every Friday for like the last 2 years during the season. But I also have, and I'm hoping that somebody will post it here, I have a webinar that I did called Sunflowers for the Win, which really explains to you step by step what and how I do that whole in-season sunflower rotation, that we start a certain number of sunflowers each week in 128 trays, then we plant them out in the garden when they're 2 to 3 weeks old, probably more 3 weeks than 2 weeks, and it'll give you all the details on that. So what I wanted to share with you today is how I have taken that concept and I'm just pushing it a little deeper into spring, or very early spring actually. And so for the last 2 years, I have been starting sunflowers earlier and earlier. And so today, which is, so my last, I have to stop and think, y'all, my last expected spring frost is mid-April. So right about now, the 1st of March would be 6 weeks from now. So I am, in fact, going to be starting my sunflowers today, and I want to tell you what I base that on and what you need to really think about when you're actually making those choices. So First off, you have to consider when is your last spring frost. If you are living in zone 5 and your last frost isn't till June, then you should not be starting your sunflowers along with me right now. It is way, way, way too early. So I think and first off, the other thing is, this is a risk, y'all. This is a gamble. This may not work for you. So you need to not put all your eggs in one basket. So I'm not going to be starting a ton of I would not be starting a full 1,200 when we were in high production this early in the season, if I was still in the experiment stage, right? So I think that it's a reasonable consideration to start sunflowers in the 128 trays, which I'm going to do here in just a minute, 6 weeks before your last spring frost. And then so that's your first consideration. I wouldn't going beyond 6 weeks is kind of crazy. I mean, you can do it, obviously. You can do anything you want, but will it work? I don't know. So when is your frost date? The second thing is do you have the support system to grow these guys until you can plant them out in the garden? Because here's the other thing. When you're growing them in season, meaning when it's warm outside, we start them like I'm going to start today. We pop them into that really hot grow room because it's really hot because it's in the middle of summer, right? And it goes up to 95 degrees and stays warm in there 24/7. We get them to pop in there, meaning to sprout. And once a little bit more than half of them have sprouted, we just pop them out onto the porch. They grow out into the open full sun. They live out there 24/7. Well, you can't do that now. It's too cold. At least I can't. So in years past, I have never had grow lights available to be able to do this because we've always been in high production. I mean, if you have missed out on the last year, maybe of kind of our transition, we have transitioned from a 23 years of being a production flower farm into more of a learning center, a virtual learning center and a learning garden and an online garden shop, and online courses. So we no longer are like trying to start the very most in a very small amount of space, and you know what I mean, to get all the plants that we can. So this is what led me down this little rabbit hole of this experiment. I realized, I can make it so that the grow lights on the bottom racks don't have anything on them, so I can just slide my sunflower trays right on the floor underneath those lights and support them until they can be warm enough to go outside for at least the day. So if you don't have a support system, then this may not be for you. Because let me just tell you what will happen. Sunflowers, when they don't get enough light, they just start twisting and turning and getting all tangled up, and it is impossible to plant them. And if you were to get them planted, you might have lost your mind by then. I mean, it is nothing but a tangled mess. So I'm just discouraging people to try to do this that don't have light support, to do this experiment this early in the season. Lights are not needed when you grow them in the normal season, okay? So that is step 1 is when is your last frost date? Going 6 weeks before to start these transplants indoors beyond that is really crazy. 2, do you have light support to support them until you can plant them outdoors or at least set them outdoors during the day? And the third thing that you really need to think about is we hoop and cover them when we plant them outside. Y'all, it's still way before my last frost date. It's cold at night. It's chilly during the day. The wind is cold. So when we plant them out in the garden during this experimental, very early spring startup, we hoop and cover them. So that's kind of like those are the 3 pieces that before you dive into this and start a bunch of sunflowers, you need to consider all 3 steps. When is your date? Do you have light to support them until you can lay them out, get them outside? First, light support, because if you don't get light support, you will soon experience what I'm talking about. And then you need to have support for them out in the garden with hoops and row covers. That's what's going to help them to grow, and so that we're going to have focal flowers so early in the season. So why would we want to do that? First off, we love to grow a sunflower about this big. 3 to 4 inches. That is the perfect sunflower size for any bouquet work, for selling commercially, making bouquets, straight bunches, whatever you're doing. And that is the perfect size. And so that's what our goal is each week. And Sunflowers for the Win will really help you to figure that out. So we plant them outdoors into the garden when they're about 3 weeks old. And we do the same spacing as is in the Sunflowers for the Win. But our goal is to have sunflowers almost 5 to 6 weeks before we would if we had waited and started planting them out at our frost day, maybe like 4 weeks early. We actually made Mother's Day last year. That was a huge coup because for us, our members only market here on the farm for all those years, we often did not even open it until after Mother's Day because we didn't have the focal flowers to make mixed bouquets. We had tons of cool flowers, which we were selling by the boatload to commercial customers, florists, but we didn't have enough variety to make finished bouquets, and these sunflowers did it for us the last 2 years. So here's the next thing that you really want to think about. What colors are you going to start? We don't start the classic orange petal, brown disc sunflower, the one sunflower that's kind of like the poster child. So I dropped my seed, y'all. Wait a minute. So I'm starting 5 different sunflowers today. And I'm going to tell you, they're based on what I always think about each week when I'm starting sunflowers. And so this is starting my weekly successions. I'll be starting sunflowers once a week right up until probably the 1st of October. That is how you have consistent supply, y'all. You got to plant them every week to be cutting them every week. And here's the other thing. You need to at least stick with the same series, meaning I'm a Pro Cut fan. We love Pro Cuts for a lot of different reasons. Strong stems, lots of colors. And they're quick, 55 to 60 days from seed to bloom, right? So you can't change up the variety each week and expect them to just bloom on time. You have to plant the same variety each week, and we tend to even keep at least one color in the variety because sometimes colors within a variety can have a little bit of different timing. For all the years that we were in production, whether it be high production or the last 5 years so in high production for us was for about 8 years. And that was during those years that we were doing 10 to 15,000 stems of flowers a week because we serviced 23 florists and 2 supermarket chains with multiple stores in each chain. So we needed a lot of flowers, right? So we planted 1,200, 10 trays a week of sunflowers to go with everything else that we were doing. Well, we dropped down to 4 trays about 5 years ago because there is something flying around in here, y'all. It keeps catching my eye, so I'm sorry if I dart, I'm the squirrel. So we dropped down to just 4 trays because we were just doing, we only kept 2 of our very original florists, and then we were doing our members only market here on the farm. And we had a couple hundred members, and not all of them came every week, but we needed to have a good volume of flowers for ladies to come and make their mixed bunches or to pick up a bunch. So we dropped down to 4. Well, now in this learning center garden mode, I've dropped back to 1 tray, and in 1 tray is going to have multiple different types of sunflowers, which I'm going to identify them, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Because now our big push is educating you, and we're really doing a cool thing out in the garden to plant these guys that I can't wait to share with you when that time comes. So what I'm thinking about when I'm getting ready to do what I'm getting ready to do right now, starting seeds, is what colors should I be selecting? When are they going to be blooming, right? And so these guys are going to be blooming in May, and that's spring. That is cool flowers. Those are pastels. Those are, wedding colors. Those are, yellows and pinks and all that kind of stuff. So a bright orange sunflower doesn't really just mill in with those kind of mixes of colors, right? So I picked the Pro Cuts accordingly. So for sure, the Pro Cut White Light is on the gamut. That is, the White Light is white petals with the chartreuse green and yellow goldy kind of color inside. It goes with anything. You could put it with absolutely any mix of flowers and it would just blend right in. Plus, I will tell you this also, and even you'll trick your commercial customers, people don't even know what these are. They look at them and they don't think sunflower, not only because of the colors, but because they're smaller, which are so very useful, right? I mean, your commercial growers will say, is that a New Gerber daisy? Or is that some kind of daisy? Or what is that? So you're really going to have to introduce people to this. If you're selling to commercial customers, all you have to do is take them a free sample with their first order, and they'll be on board every week, as many as you can give them. So White Light is definitely on my lineup. And then, you know, y'all, if you haven't been around me very much, you don't know that I'm really very fickle. I love the flower I'm with, but this is really the one I love. And I say that all the time too. Pro Cut Gold Light. Holy cow, y'all. Gold Light is the one that has the gold petals, but it is chartreuse green inside. This is, if you'd only grow one, this is the one to grow. It goes with everything. It would blend in with anything you're going to grow. So Gold Light is the next one. And then a new one to us this year, but I've talked to people that have grown it and they absolutely adore it, is the Pro Cut Peach. I mean, how does peach not go with spring, right? Y'all, it is a wasp. He just flew past me. I'm not really afraid of wasps, but I'm not really happy about wasps either. So there he goes. So peach is one that I'm going to be starting. And then the other one is the Pro Cut Lemon. The lemon is the yellow that was the color of the year. Wasn't it last year? I think this year it's azure autumn blue kind of. This has got a chocolate center and the pale yellow petals. This screams spring also. And then the last one is not a Pro Cut at all. It is Sunfill Green. The Sunfill series, so Pro Cut is a series, Sunfill is a series. The Sunfill series, we really grow them not for what they actually ultimately end up blooming out into this crazy looking, odd looking sunflowers. It is their stages before that. They have these amazing, sepals are the green layers of leaf matter, it looks like, that are around the bud before it opens. These have layers of sepals. They actually look like succulents almost. We grow these purely for filler and foliage-like behaviors. And there's two of them. There's Sunfill Green, which is what I'm going to be planting here today. And then there is Sunfill Purple. I don't really grow the purple very much. One thing you're going to soon learn when you are making bouquets, whether you're doing supermarkets or farmers market, you do not want your bouquets to be dark. People are not drawn to them. You're going to be looking for light color foliages, light colors, hot colors, and any dark, like we don't really grow very much deep red zinnias and the wine zinnia. I mean, they're gorgeous colors, don't get me wrong, but when you put them into a bouquet, they bring them down. And that's not what we found as what the most people want. So I grow Sunfill Green because it's a lighter color green. It's more like the color of Miss Burns Lemon Basil, how it's kind of a chartreusey kind of color. So I'm going to be planting all of these seeds in this one tray. And so we use blue painter's tape. We used to use masking tape. And then one of you wonderful followers told me that about the painter's tape rips off better than masking tape does. So I'm just going to, first off, let me just write this. I'm only going to write the date here once. What is today? I just said it's 3/3. So the first ones are going to be white. Sorry, y'all. I can no longer do 10 different things at the same time. So I am just going to put, I'm doing 3 rows in my tray of each color except for peach, which I'm going to actually do 4 because all these others I know about, but that one's going to be 4. So that's going to be white. Then I'm going to be doing gold. So as I mentioned earlier, if you can only grow one, I would grow gold. And the other thing I want to say to you, saying it again and again, y'all, this is an experiment. There is a chance that it is not, that you may lose them if you have a really drop down into the 20s. Ours did face way below freezing last year and came through. But remember, I had them hooped and covered. Sunfill. I think somebody left this pen open. It's not writing very good, and I do not see another one. So fun working with other people, isn't it? I mean, I love having people here on the farm, but everybody puts stuff in different places. All right, so we're doing 3 there. And then this one is the lemon. And y'all, you have to really be good about marking them because like for us, the proper harvesting stage is before they're really opening. And so if you need to know, what is it that is planted there, especially with the sunfill, because we harvest them long before they open. And so you need to know, last year we had a terrible episode of non-marked ones, and nobody knew, is this like really the sunfill green or is it a different one? All right, and then peach is getting the biggest space here. It's getting 4 rows. Y'all, this pen is really terrible. I'm gonna have to go over this, but I wanna be able to tell what it is. All right, I think this might be gone south. All right, so we're using masking tape or painter's tape. Masking tape works just as well. It's just harder to peel. All right, I'm gonna drop y'all down so you can see what I'm doing. It's really pretty simple, y'all, but at least it gives you something to look at besides my face, right? All right, so I'm going to do this one first, and I'm leaving these here so, I'll go on to automatic pilot and just be filling all of them like we've done so much for all these years. All right, so we're doing Pro Cut White Light, and literally I just pour them into my hand, and then I'm going to just drop one on the surface, and I'm actually going to do this different than I normally do. Usually I go up and down, but I'm going to do it this way. So I'm just dropping a seed on the surface. And you'll see what we do to finish all this off. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how I care for these normally, what'll happen. Oh, there's a ladybug that's gone on to another world. Looks like just her shell. All right, so how quick and easy is this, y'all? And so I want to just say that some people, we've gotten actually messages from people, about what's going on in Ukraine, and oh my goodness, just how terrible it is. But as you may or may not know, that sunflowers are the flower of Ukraine because they are the top producer of sunflower seeds, not for what we're doing here, but for sunflower oil. So people were afraid there was going to be a shortage of sunflower seeds. Well, there's not going to be, that I'm aware of, a shortage of sunflower seeds any more than we already have because of the pandemic situation. What Ukraine grows sunflowers for is sunflower oil. And that surely may will, I would imagine, experience that, that won't be happening this year. All right, so see how easy this is, y'all? And wait, so this is the sunfill green. Y'all, the sunfill green, in my opinion, is like the answer to all of our filler dreams because you can start it every single week. So when we were starting multiple trays, we did 4 trays a week. What I started every single week to be certain that we had some sunflowers to cut as far as timing goes is Pro Cut Orange is my go-to. It's the best selling. It is the one, when we did 1,200 sunflowers a week for all those years, I only grew Pro Cut Orange. When you got 1,200 sunflowers a week, you do not want to be guessing which color is which. So we only grew one color, and guess what? It sold like hotcakes, y'all. People just love sunflowers. I mean, our florist bought 10 and 20 bunches a week, each customer. So don't think you have to grow a bunch of different colors. Why? Especially if you're a new grower and you're really starting a business, I mean, you're really doing it. You can't imagine how complicated your life is going to get the minute you start harvesting. You're just not even going to believe it. To have to stop and figure out what color a sunflower is because you've grown 3 or 4 different ones each week. Yeah, I'm telling you, you don't have to grow a bunch of different ones. I'm doing it because I can now. So this is the peach, and we're doing 4 rows of that. But your life is going to get really, really complicated. So we do have all of, and I checked with Lane before I talked about this peach. Lane is our seed manager, and I okayed it with her that we do have plenty of stock of even the peach. Anything I mention with peach or apricot just sells out really, really quickly or goes out of stock temporarily while we repackage more. I know the apricot stock, I'm not sure if they have that back in stock yet or not, but anyway, we do have the bulk to be able to get it back. All right, so this is what I do next. So all of these are going back in here and pushing my seeds aside. So now all I'm going to do is I just put my finger on the seed that's laying there and just push it down into the cell because, y'all, sunflowers germinate best in darkness with soil on top of them. And so if you stopped and if I leaned over and looked down into the cells right now, I could probably see some of those seeds. And you don't have to add more soil because what's happened, you are pushing the seeds down in there and there's a bunch of soil on the wall of these cells. When you water these, that washes all that soil down right on top of that seed. So again, you just do not have to make this any more difficult than it really is. Where am I? Because you just can't, this can be, you know, this is a job, and I talk about it in the webinar. You have to make this a priority. Like, this should be somebody's job to come in on Tuesday mornings, and the first thing they do is start all your sunflowers. So let's talk. All right. So, craziness, right? There you go. So what I'm going to do now is I will take this tray and I'm going to take it into my grow room and I'm going to water it with a watering can with a sprinkler head on it and water it really deeply and let it sit on the floor and drain. And then I am going to pop this because I have space available because it's not naturally warm in that room like it is in summer. I'm going to pop it onto a seedling heat mat. That's going to get those suckers to pop. And then once they pop, because I can't put them outside because it's way too early, right? I'm going to put them over under some grow lights. And so each week we're going to start one tray together. And we're going to track this and, some tips. So even though these seeds are 55 to 60 days in season, they can be a little slower when it's cold outside, especially if you don't really pay good attention and get them hooped and covered. And we even put double covers. We went down below 30 a couple of times last year, and I was just totally amazed how they took it. But we did throw an extra cover over at night for those nights when it really, really dipped low. So the other thing that you need to be aware of is, sunflowers, some of them are what's called day length neutral. That means that even though the days are short, they will still grow and produce a bud. Well, if you want to so even when they're day length neutral, they will continue to grow and form a bud this time of the year when it's short, but they typically will be shorter. and their blooms might not be as big as they would be in May or June if you're planting them then. But here, when you're starting them under grow lights like I am and supporting them under grow lights, that's not going to happen. Dave Dowling says that if you just give them interruption light, which means on the shorter days, if you just have a light come on for an hour in the middle of the night, wherever you're growing, you can put it on a timer, that's interruption light. That's enough to make them grow taller before they start blooming. You never know what you're going to learn here, y'all. So I am going to take a look at what questions you guys may have. And so stand by, y'all. Don't let me make you dizzy. So I am going to take the tray into the grow room along with the salvia. Stand by. That way. There you go. I'm going to put the tray in there, do what I just said, put the salvia back under the light, and we're going to party on until next week. And so I do have, some cool flower experiments going on here, but we are not really starting a whole lot of seeds right now. So I'm the seed taker carer of, so I'm really, really happy about that. So I'm just looking back to see if anybody has questions. Again, grab the webinar. You can just give us your email and we'll send it to you. And I just so appreciate when y'all use your sunflower emoji. And the number one thing you can really do is to like and share this broadcast. That makes Facebook show it to more people. And that's what drives us, y'all. So we really appreciate if you just like it and share it onto your timeline, then that means it'll always be there, but that just helps me so very, very much. And I love seeing all these sunflowers, guys. Hi, Lisa. I have raised bed gardens that will be filled with soil and then left till the fall in South Carolina. Should I put Bio 360 on the beds to prevent weeds until we return to South Carolina in the fall? No, Kim, I would not use Bio 360 because I bet it will break down since there's just being exposed to the sun and the heat for so long during the heat of summer. So during the winter, it's not quite so bad, but I would definitely use silage tarps. That would be your best bet. You wouldn't have to worry about anybody like animals walking on it and ripping. A raccoon can walk across Bio 360 with those long toenails and just shred Bio 360, as well as deer and others. But I would definitely use black side up Bio. Silage tarp that will prevent water from getting to it, which will help grow weeds. So it'll prevent all that from happening. So that's what I would do for sure. And you're smart to do that. And that stuff should be super ready to grow when you get back there. Where is that sunflower icon? So the sunflower icon, if you're on your phone, down at the bottom left, there's the little emoji, the little smiley face. If you tap that, it brings up normally other emojis, and it usually has a little search bar. You can type in sunflower, or you can scroll through to actually find it. All right. Oh, there you go. Somebody else is helping you. Hello, everybody. It's so good to see folks. Stephanie, are you going to cover your Lysianthus? So, interesting question. So, Lysianthus, of course, is a cool flower. And I just looked at the 2-week forecast. And tonight is the coldest night, so it says right now. It's only going down to 32. And I probably won't, because guess what? Our Lysianthus have already been sitting outside in the open, and they went down to like 26 a couple nights ago. And I did actually snap some of my own dill. I can't even believe it. I just totally forgot they were all sitting out there. Anyway, happens to all of us, y'all. So we will have row cover in the garden. So if I get cold feet, I can cover it. And the only reason I would cover it, because our fall planted Lysianthus looks awesome, y'all. Lizzie can take the cold. It's the wet feet that gets them. But because what we're planting today is so newly planted, I may cover it. But only if it was going below 25 would I actually do covers. We suffered some losses. This on cool flowers this year, things that I've grown for many years, and we totally have attributed it to wetness. I just did a little research on our weather for this year, and it was colder this winter, but we have had far colder winters in years past. But it's the moisture level. And I had a whole bed of giant poppy pods that were gorgeous in November and December, gone. They just melted down. And looking at the bed today, the soil is just really wet there, and it's not really, hadn't rained that much. So, that is the number one enemy of cool flowers, of anything that winters over: bulbs, perennials, cool flowers. So it's not the cold. Y'all, we, as always, as I do too, we think too much about the top half of the plant, where we really got to be focusing on the bottom half, what's in the ground and the status there, to really help our stuff out. So I love that y'all are helping each other. Can those cuttings be placed in small soil blocks? Bonnie is asking. I guess they could, but I don't think it would last very long. I think it's just much easier to do it in a plug tray because I don't put the cuttings on heat, which would fuel the roots to grow faster. I have to sit on them too long. For us, I don't usually plant these out until probably like mid-April. So we have a long time to go, and they're going to be super well rooted in cuttings by that time. And I just don't think you can get that in the small block anyway. You can do it in the 2-inch block, but it's just easier. For instance, I will, once it starts to warm up, I'll just set these plug trays of the cuttings out on the open porch. They can get rained on, they can get sun, but you can't do that with soil blocks, right? You can't set them out there and just leave them without thinking, because if it rains, it'll wash the blocks away. So it's just a convenience thing. My puppy plucked out my potted up straw flowers yesterday. Oh, don't you love dogs? Tucker is locked away in the house. So I'm glad you said that. It reminds me. So next Thursday, we're not having a Facebook Live. Tucker's actually getting surgery next Wednesday. He's getting hip surgery. A lot of big dogs have hip dysplasia. They're predisposed to it, and he has it pretty bad, and he's super athletic and super healthy, and we want to fix it now. So he's having that done next Wednesday, and I pick him up next Thursday. So I'll be tending to a patient next Thursday, so I will not see you next Thursday on Facebook. All right, friends, I'm just looking to see if we have any questions. So the dirt therapist asks, when should I thin the fall planted cool flowers? That's a great question. So for the direct seeding that we've done in the fall, we do it as when the plants start growing in very early spring, which is right now. I mean, we actually need to net, believe it or not, our agrostemma and our bachelor buttons. I mean, they're just shooting straight up, and they haven't been thinned. So we need to thin them. They look good right now, but let me tell you, they won't look good in 2 months or in actually 6 or 8 weeks or so, when they're up and tall and blooming. There's just too many. So we do it at the first signs of spring blooming or spring growth. That's when we would fertilize. That's when we would thin them. I'm experimenting with starting them early this year here in 5B. I have a cold frame. I only started 25, almost ready to plant them in the cold frame after hardening off a bit. Good for you. I mean, if you have the setup to do it, you need to do it. You never know until you try it. And it may not be advantageous to start this early, or it may be. And those are the things, then just make notes, because you'll never remember what you did. And so I thank you so much. Jessie is sharing on here that, I don't know if y'all knew it, but I have a private Facebook group for people that are aspiring to be flower farmers and that are flower farming. It's called The Flower Farmer Show. And I would love for you to join it. You just have to answer a few questions, answer them right, and we'll let you in. Where it's intended for people that are becoming flower farmers, or that's their aim. And we would love to have you join us over there. I think there's over 3,000 people, and there's always just really good conversations going on. And I see that Jessie has also put the link to the sunflower. Anybody else tried the peach yet? Yeah, I talked to somebody that grew it and they were really, really pleased. I mean, obviously it's not going to be fuzzy and peachy like a real peach, but it has that glow about it is what I'm understanding. You know, the Pro Cut Brilliance, which is one of my favorites, which is the yellow orange that has like this halo around the brown disc. Oh my gosh. It is, I mean, it is one of those flowers. You could probably look into that flower and write a poem. I mean, it is inspiring. I'm not kidding you. It is really cool. I think that's how peach is going to be, y'all. Yes, Chrissy, you can ask any question you want on here. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge. Your and Dave's course was fantastic. Amanda, thank you so much. And you know, that is the one thing that we'll start talking about now. And thank you for bringing it up, Amanda. If you are one of our students that has taken mine or Dave's course or any of our online courses, just reaching out on your own social media platforms and saying, hey, I took this course. If you want to know my opinion of it, ask me. We did that last year, and you just can't believe the number of people that reached out to us that said, talking to two of your students totally opened my eyes why I need to take this class. And so that is an amazing gift that you can give back to us. And we really, really appreciate that. And if you are one of my students, you also, and y'all that aren't my students are going to want to be my students after I tell you this, we have created a new tool that is a part of my flower farming school. It's called the Cool Flowers Field Report. And it is a tool that all of my students have access to, and they can also post on it. And it is made in such a way, it's a database that we can all put in our experience with different cool flowers in different zones that we don't know about. That's the whole problem with cool flowers. I mean, there's so much unknown about it that it all puts it together. I mean, it's like, it gives me goosebumps to talk about it, y'all. And that is my course, Flower Farming School, the Basics. That is part of my course. And so my students have access to that to actually benefit from it, but also to post on it. And I'm so very stoked about it. So this is the time of the year that I'm encouraging my students to really go in there and post your experience. It's like somebody just said to me yesterday that they were growing the carnation that I was telling you about, that heirloom carnation. They are in zone 5 and they fall planted it, didn't cover it all winter, and it looks awesome. It's a dianthus, right? I mean, how beneficial will that be to be included in that database? For somebody to go and look, you can search it by your zone, by a flower. It's just totally amazing. Our team has gone over the top into creating it. Anyway, sorry, I went down a rabbit hole. So if you're one of our students, we love it when you share about it. We just love having all you guys on here. So I'll just say this about dogs, and then I have to get off here because it's now lunchtime here. And I have a 1 o'clock meeting, a 2:30 podcast interview, and a 5 o'clock meeting. The one thing that I know after being, my previous life, I was a dog professional for 20 years. I worked in a veterinary hospital for 20 years and was a dog fancier, did dog shows, training, all that kind of stuff. We cannot expect our dogs to not just storm into our garden while we're working in it. When I'm working in my garden, Tucker is either in his dog yard. We have a designated dog yard. It's a fenced in area that Tucker can be free and loose and destroy anything in there. And I know he's safely confined while we're working in the garden because of course he comes over and brings me his ball. He's a dog, right? Or I put him on a downstay at the end of the bed I'm working on, but he's really well trained that way. That is pretty much the way that I live with being happy with my dog. So that's all I have for you today, friends. So folks, please check out the Gardener's Workshop. If you're one of my students, please, or Dave's students, Dave's class comes before mine, share the love and check out the Gardener's Workshop, and please join me over on my closed Facebook group, The Flower Farmer Show. All right, folks, till we meet again. Ciao.